Hi, I'm Matt Reed and I'm one of the RCEM professors. I'm also the lead at the moment for the RCEM grant process, and this talk is to give you a little bit more information about the grant process and also hopefully give you the information you need to be successful at winning an RCEM grant in the future. So RCEM offers several grant opportunities. The undergraduate research and quality improvement prizes are both advertised towards the end of October for a February deadline and include prize money, membership of the Royal College of Emergency Medicine for a year, and the opportunity to present at the Autumn Annual Scientific Conference. The Clinical Studies Group offer 3 prizes: the Blue Sky Ideas, the Young Investigator and the Principal Investigator of the Year Awards, which are awarded during the Clinical Studies Group's meetings in January. There is also the RCEM Research Grants for low-income countries, which I'll touch on later on, and there's also the RCEM PhD Fellowship. There are now 2 calls a year for the RCEM Main Research Grants. The call in autumn is advertised in May, with a deadline several months later, and the spring call is advertised in November, again with a deadline several months after that, and a decision made at the next R&P committee meeting, which is usually about 6 months after the initial call. The maximum we award any one grant is £10,000. We can award up to £15,000 in exceptional circumstances, but this is fairly rare. It is important that the lead applicant is a college member or fellow of any category. There is a specific application form, and we request that is completed and submitted along with the lead applicant's CV. And all the information that you need is on the internet in the RCEM research section as detailed on the slide. Prior to an RCEM research grant committee meeting, all the applications are read and marked according to the 6 categories you can see on the screen. We're looking for good quality science, we're looking for subject matter that is relevant to emergency medicine, we're looking potentially for work that can further the academic development of the lead applicant, and that may be allowing them to lead a study that then gives them grounding in going on and leading further research studies. It may be that it forms some pilot work to build up to a PhD or MD application. The study needs to be deliverable. We're not expecting a multi-centre randomised controlled trial featuring hundreds of patients for £10,000. We like to think that the work proposed, if completed and successful, will go on to lead to future research funding. So the grant may be used to do some preparatory work, for example, to lead up to a larger NIHR call. During the research committee meeting, one committee member will act as the lead reviewer and the other as a second reviewer. We take it in turns to go through each grant, and the committee member who leads and then followed by the seconder summarises the proposals and talks about the strengths and weaknesses of the proposal to the full committee. We then have discussions around each of the grants, and we look at the marking scheme and how the grant scored according to all the categories. And then once we've done that, we look at the applications as a whole and rank them to decide which applications we can fund and which ones sadly we can't. So from spring 2021, due to us receiving a large number of applications in the last couple of grant windows, we have decided to only mark those that reach a certain threshold during preliminary marking to discuss at the meeting. And this is because of the large number of grant applications we're receiving at the moment, the limited time that we have to discuss all the grants, and we feel that we should focus mainly on those grants that have the best chance of being funded. To give you an idea, in autumn 2020 we received 18 applications requesting a total of £156,000. We only had £35,000 to award, and we did so choosing 5 grants. So you can see that the grant process has become extremely competitive. So how to get your RCEM grant application funded? First of all, think very carefully about what finance you are going to ask for. All RCEM funding studies are eligible for portfolio support, which will enable you to access research nurse support amongst other things. You therefore may be more likely to get a smaller amount of money and be successful putting in for a smaller amount of money, which will then enable you to access this portfolio support. Look at the James Lind Alliance priorities. You may still get funding for non-James Lind Alliance priorities, but these may not score as well in their relevance to emergency medicine. Think what is achievable with the funding. You're not going to be able to deliver a 300 patient CTIM RCT trial on £10,000. RCEM funding's better suited to pilot, preparatory work, systematic review, patient and ED survey work to inform a larger application to larger funders such as the NIHR. Complete the correct form. Long Word documents without the required information are not particularly appreciated by the committee. Complete the finance section correctly. Don't just put 10k or as much money as the grant offers, which we have had in the past, in the finance section, with no costing breakdowns whatsoever. Remember, RCEM is a small charitable funder compared to other research funders that are out there, and therefore we've made the decision not to fund open access and conference fees. Make sure you get the right person to sign the signatory section, and that's either the head of your department or the head of R&D funding or your university section head. You can't sign this yourself. Try to make sure, if you're studying a complex novel intervention, for example, you're looking at a complex regional nerve block for pain relief in the emergency department, you have to standardise and optimise your usual care first of all, and show that you have done that prior to then adding in this complex intervention. Don't pitch an idea that's only relevant to one or a very small number of EDs and is not going to be generalisable to emergency departments across the UK and across the world. Make sure that any collaborator that we would expect to see on the application is there. For example, if you're looking at medicine reconsideration, make sure that a pharmacist is involved and is a collaborator on your grant. So some more useful tips. Ensure that the problem is one that affects patients up and down emergency departments across the UK, and ensure that it hasn't already been studied and that your question is novel and is not being studied at the moment by a trial or research study in progress. Ensure your study is research and that it's not a QI or policy or educational resource proposal. Saying that, it doesn't necessarily need to be delivered through research governance, but it could be delivered as a service evaluation project if that's the best way to answer your research question. Assemble a strong team. Make sure you have research experience and your collaborators, and that you have collaborators in all the fields that are relevant to your research question. Seek advice from senior academics and show your proposal to as many people as possible. Ensure your time frames are realistic. This is always a problem in delivering emergency medicine research. Ensure your methodology is well explained, and make sure you've chosen the right methodology to answer your specific research question. Make sure you're very clear from the outset about what your research question is, and then very clear about how you're going to answer that specific question. Make sure your recruitment numbers are realistic and practical. Pitch your proposal very clearly and concisely, and summarise it early on. Think about the so what question. What difference will this make? If my study findings are positive, how will this change emergency department practice and improve the care of patients coming to the emergency department? As part of your collaborations, think whether your study methodology may lend itself to being delivered through collaboration with the Turn group, and contact the Turn fellow. And finally, think about patient and public involvement through all stages of the research. For those of you who have applied for RCEM grants before, we've made a number of changes for spring 2021. The first of these is removing the indirect cost section, and this is always the bit that adds on 40% for indirect costs, which has traditionally been from putting a grant through the university. And because we are a small funder, we have decided that we cannot fund these as well, which does mean that there is more money for you to put towards other parts of your grants. That's a good thing. We are also going to be asking in the application form about the possibility for the study to lead on to future funding opportunities. And we're also going to ask about what other funding you've already secured for your project and where else have you applied to, and when do you expect to hear about whether these other applications for research monies have been successful. Finally, we are quite strict about whether applicants are eligible to apply for funding. We want to make sure that all the paperwork is completed and all the relevant signatures in place, and we obviously can't consider grants that don't have this all in place. So as mentioned previously, there is also an RCEM research grant call for lead applicants who are practicing emergency medicine in a low-income country. These grants are advertised yearly and are worth up to £5,000, and the lead applicant should also collaborate with a member or fellow of UK RCEM who should also be a co-applicant on the grant. And again, there is all the relevant information on the RCEM website. Finally, we do try to stretch the RCEM budget as far as it will go and to try and fund as many projects as possible. So with that in mind, follow some of those top tips, get your applications in, and good luck.